Hi, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a Book of Mormon Tidbits video about Abish, and I'm really excited to do this one with you. Abish is probably my favorite person in the scriptures, or at least one of them. She's very close to the top. So I'm excited to get in and talk to you about her. So if you're new to my channel, I created this channel as a homeschooling resource to do different videos like I'm doing today to provide spiritual insights, things you could share with your kids in your homeschool experience, whatever you want to use it for. And then also to give you different curriculum ideas, which is coming soon for next year, and different organizational ideas, just hopefully help your homeschool experience be better. So if you're interested in those things, please hit that subscribe button and let's talk about Abish. So I first want to say there's only 4 verses that talk about Abish, and they're in Alma 19. And these 4 verses are absolutely amazing. It's crazy to me that I have learned so much from only 4 verses. Obviously, it takes kind of the whole chapter, this comprehensive look, to understand the whole story, but Abish is only mentioned in these 4 verses, and yet she has such a profound impact upon so many people. And so I just love that. And I want to just share 3 things that I have learned from this story. You know, there's a lot more than that, I'm sure, but these are just things that impacted me and that I thought about. So I want to first start her story, which we don't actually know the start of her story. We don't have very much about her, but it does give us a little bit of a hint in the very first verse that mentions her. So I want to start there. And that verse is in Alma 19 and it's verse 16. So we're going to read it and learn a little bit about who she was. So it says, "And it came to pass that they did call on the name of the Lord in their might, even until they had all fallen to the earth, save it were one of the Lamanitish women, whose name was Abish, she having been converted unto the Lord for many years on account of a remarkable vision of her father." So I'm going to explain a couple things first. First, what the heck is going on? I should have done that first, like before I read the verse, but I wasn't thinking about it. So in this verse, this is Ammon going to speak to King Lamoni. And so he's been talking to him and everyone's collapsed, basically. Basically, they fall into the ground because, you know, King Lamoni is overwhelmed by the Spirit. His wife is overwhelmed by the Spirit. Ammon is also fallen down. And so Abish is not. She has not been affected by this. So then we get this verse that's telling us about her, at least a little bit. So it says that she had been converted for many years because of a remarkable vision her father received. So who knows what she's been up to this whole time, but somehow she has remained faithful because of this vision her father had. And I just think that's amazing. This woman she's living among the Lamanites, people that hate Nephites, that hate what she is converted to, what she stands for, and yet she's continued to live there and be faithful to what she believes, to this vision her father had. So that brings me to my first point. Again, I have my cheat sheet so we get this right. But it says, be faithful when no one knows or when no one is watching. So that's the first thing I feel like comes across so strongly about Abish. No one was watching her. Nobody even knew that she was a member of the church, you know, that she was following Christ. Nobody had any idea, and if they did, they probably would have killed her, which is why she didn't tell anyone. So she lives her conversion in secret, but she remains faithful. So I think that's important for us to remember that, yeah, we might not have everyone looking at us and saying, oh, you should do this or you should do that, but are we still remaining faithful? Especially during this time when we don't even have church on Sundays at a church building. You know, are we still remaining close to our Savior? Are we doing things that we're supposed to be doing, even though nobody's watching us and we're not interacting with very many people, but are we remaining faithful and ready to be called upon to act, which is what is going to happen in her life. So we're going to move to the next verse, which is verse 17, and discover this second thing. So I'm going to read it. It's kind of long, so be patient. So it says, "Thus, having been converted to the Lord, and never having made it known, therefore when she saw that all the servants of Lamoni had fallen to the earth, and also her mistress, the queen, and the king, and Ammon lay prostrate upon the earth, she knew that it was the power of God. and supposing that this opportunity, by making known unto the people what had happened among them, by beholding this scene, it would cause them to believe in the power of God. Therefore, she ran from house to house, making it known unto the people. So many great things in here. So it talks about how the king and queen and Ammon and the servants are all passed out, basically. They're all experiencing this conversion, being overwhelmed by the Spirit and laying on the ground. And she immediately recognizes it as the power of God. And so what does she do? She goes door to door, basically, telling people to come and see what's happened. She recognizes this as a spiritual moment that could change people's lives. And so she goes out. So the second thing, that is not a two, the second thing we wanted to mention is to be willing to open our mouths and share with others. So Abish, even though she had been quiet for who knows how many years with this conversion, as soon as she saw an opportunity, she immediately recognized it for what it was, this spiritual experience, and she was willing to go share it. And I just love that about her. She was so, zealous for preaching the gospel. As soon as her moment came, I'm sure she was very excited because she probably had felt so alone and just ready to burst for years. And then she's finally able to go and share. So I wanted just to tell a few things about this story that happened in between us hearing about her again. So there's a few verses in 19 that happen, and people start to come, to see what's going on. And some of them think that it's a curse, that Ammon, and the Nephites brought this curse. And that's why everyone's passed out on the floor, is they've all been cursed. Some of them think it is this great spirit, or that the great spirit sent Ammon, and so some of them think that, some of them, recognizing this as more of a spiritual experience. And then there's some of these people that come that are angry. There's one of them in particular whose brother was killed at the waters of Sebus. I don't know if that's how you say it. Don't get mad at me. But he came and he sees Ammon, passed out on the floor. And Ammon had killed this man's brother when they were trying to steal sheep. He cut off a lot of people's arms, and I think he only killed one or two, I can't remember exactly. And one of those people that was killed was this man's brother. So he comes up, it's perfect opportunity to kill Ammon because he can't do anything. And as he goes to try to kill Ammon, he falls dead. Because the Lord had promised King Mosiah that his sons would be protected. And so Ammon, he wasn't going to be able to kill him. So he, passes out on the floor. And so there's all this commotion going on. Some people think, Ammon is a monster. Some think he's the Great Spirit or sent by the Great Spirit. And so it's in all this chaos that's going on. And I don't know if it's like a palace or what. I'm not really sure where the king lived back then. But and that Abish is going to come back to us in this story. And so I want you to think about that. Remember the chaotic situation she's coming back to. Some believing, some not. People trying to kill Ammon. And, just all the craziness going on. So here she comes, and we're going to read it in verse 28. That's where we're going to start in here in Alma 19. We're still there. Everything's in Alma 19 today. And so this is what it says. And thus the contention began to be exceedingly sharp among them. And while they were thus contending, the woman servant who had caused the multitude to be gathered together came. And when she saw the contention which was among the multitude, she was exceedingly sorrowful, even unto tears. And I want to stop there before we go on to the last verse she's mentioned. And so I don't know what situations you've had in your life where you're like, okay, this is going to be great. I'm going to gather all these things and everything's going to be perfect. And then you show up and it's not perfect, or maybe it ends up being perfect, but at the moment it's a mess. And so that's what she's coming back to. She saw this opportunity to teach these people about Christ, and she comes back and it's a mess. Everyone's fighting. No one wants to listen. It's craziness. And so obviously she feels sad. This was finally her opportunity to do something, and she can't do it. Nobody's willing to listen. Everyone's just angry. And so it doesn't mention in the scriptures exactly, it says she was exceedingly sorrowful, but I just imagine if it was me just standing there for a minute and just like wanting to fall apart, just break down in tears, totally lose it, and just think none of this was worth it at all. And I'm sure she does have those moments like, why did I do this? Why isn't this working out? You know, I waited all this time and yet nothing's happening. But yet she does something. And this is the most profound lesson I think we can learn from this story about Abish. And I just absolutely love it because her decision at this moment affects generations. You know, people later on, it's because of this. You know, obviously God would have found another way if she wasn't willing and didn't have enough faith, but she did. And she got to change so many people's lives because of it. So we're gonna read what she did in verse 29. And I love this. It's so simple, but so profound. And it says, and it came to pass that she went and took the queen by the hand, that perhaps she might raise her from the ground. And as soon as she touched her hand, she arose and stood upon her feet and cried with a loud voice, saying, O blessed Jesus, who has saved me from an awful hell, O blessed God, have mercy on this people. And I absolutely love this. So this is the third point that I wanted to mention. And let me just read it off my notes because it's clearer that way. But it says, have faith and hope even when the way seems impossible. And that's what Abish did. The way did seem impossible. It seemed like all of her hard work was for nothing and that it was all falling apart and all these people were angry. And I'm sure this was a very difficult task for her. You know, people were watching and she had to walk up and grab the queen's hand. So even though like it was a very simple thing she did, I'm sure it still required a great amount of courage and faith for her to do it. And then the queen immediately stands up and then she reaches for the king's hand and he gets up, you know, and everyone gets up and everyone's still alive and happy. And then they're preaching about Jesus. And that's what King Lamona, his people are all contending and they're fighting and everything. But then in verse 31, you know, he rebukes them and he starts to teach them what Ammon taught him. And it said, as many as heard his words believed and were converted unto the Lord. And so I just think of the simple act of faith that Abish had and her willingness to put forth her hand. She's like, this is all I can do in this moment. I don't know what else to do. So I'm gonna put forth my hand and God's gonna make something happen. And he did. And it was amazing. And so many people were converted because, you know, she had faith, because Ammon, there was a lot of people that had a lot of faith and were willing to do things that no one else was willing to do to bring these people unto Christ. And so then we have, you know, these people are the anti-Nephi Lehi's and they become extremely faithful. And now Abish isn't alone anymore in her belief. You know, she's able to have a community of people that are working together with her and believe the same things that she does. And I just think that's absolutely amazing. This story, it's so profound in the 4 verses that we find her in. And I just absolutely love it. And so I just wanted you to think about the small things that can become great things. And do you have the faith for him to work miracles in your life? And are you willing to stand up and to share? Are you willing to just stretch forth your hand like Abish did and to exercise that faith and for a miracle to happen? Because I know that they will, and I know that we can all impact people's lives. You know, God works through small means to bring about great things, and that's exactly what Abish teaches us, is that through these small means, great things happened because of her faith and her dedication to the gospel. So I hope that helps you this week. I hope that you just love the story as much as I do, because really it's one of my favorite. I just love Abish so much. And please just give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and tell me down in the comments if there's other scripture stories you'd like me to talk about or things you just like me to check out. I'd love to hear from you. And I just hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in my next video.